In Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, the Ki-Rin are described as noble, lawful good creatures native to the celestial planes, usually working directly with good-aligned gods. They typically have the body of a stag covered in glowing golden scales instead of fur, and heads adorned with a spiraling horn similar to those of a unicorn. They were regarded widely as harbingers of divine favor, good fortune, and blessings from good-natured celestials. They rarely touch the ground, choosing instead to float or hover before those they bless with their presence, leaving mortals awestruck in their wake. The Ki-Rin has an AC of 20 and 152 hit points, with a flying speed of 120 feet and a walking speed of 60, making them highly mobile. They have amazing stats across the board as well as immunity to poison damage and the poison condition. They have blind sight up to 30 feet and dark vision up to 120, along with a passive perception of 19, which makes them very hard to hide from. The Ki-Rin are innate spellcasters with a spell save of DC 17, and a myriad of spells that focus mostly on healing, dispelling adverse effects, and resurrection, with some for protection and escape, and a couple for damage. They have 3 legendary resistances and general magic resistance, making them insanely good at avoiding spellcaster damage or effects. Their attacks are considered magical, and their spells are currently shown on the screen, all of which are focused on protection, healing, and crowd control as we previously mentioned. Other than their spells, the Ki-Rin can use their action for a multi-attack consisting of 2 hoof attacks and 1 horn strike. The hooves have a +9 to hit and a reach of 15 feet, dealing 2d4 plus 5 bludgeoning damage, a potential of 7 to 13. The horn also has a +9 to hit with a reach of 5 feet, dealing 2d8 plus 5 damage, a potential of 7 to 21. Overall, the whole multi-attack has a damage potential of 21 to 47. They also have 3 legendary actions at their disposal, each one costing only 1 of the 3 actions. They can use Detect to make a perception check primarily for locating hiding creatures, they can use Smite to do a free hoof attack or cast Sacred Flame, and they can move up to half of their speed without provoking opportunity attacks. As a DM, I believe that the Ki-Rin are meant to be allies instead of adversaries. With spells like Restoration, Mending, Hero's Feast, and True Resurrection, they're clearly meant to be advisors or emissaries in aid of the party on behalf of some divine being. However, it's entirely possible that your players may find themselves insulting a god, being tested in combat by a god, or facing off against a corrupted or otherwise controlled Ki-Rin. In combat, I would have the Ki-Rin target healers first, as they're intelligent creatures with a connection to divinity, and know how weak a party will be with no healing. I would use Banishment to get rid of tanks or high damage players, and then use the massive fly speed to close distances and make a multi-attack against the remaining players. For the most part, I would use their legendary actions to move away from melee players, as they will likely be the most dangerous. With magic and legendary resistance, spellcasters are not the Ki-Rin's main concern. As the Ki-Rin gets damaged, I would use the legendary action Move to increase distance between them and melee players, then use their action on their following turn to cast spells like Mass Cure Wounds on themselves to turn the tide of battle. If worse comes to worse and they're likely to die, I would have the Ki-Rin admit defeat to the party, and then cast Plane Shift, returning to their celestial homeland. The Ki-Rin is likely based on the Ki-Lin from Chinese mythology, and its name is likely lifted from Ki-Rin, the Japanese and Korean version of the same creature. The Ki-Lin is a legendary chimeric creature with hooves, a scaled draconic body, a draconic head, and a long tail, all of which are sometimes depicted as being wreathed in flame. They were typically written about in poetry and depicted in Chinese fables until they became associated with the image of the giraffe during the Ming Dynasty. When Jing He traveled to East Africa in the 1400s, he purchased exotic animals to bring home, including giraffes. These giraffes were then associated with the legendary Ki-Lin, an association that has stuck well into the modern age. The Ki-Lin in most depictions are draconic in nature with added features like antlers, horns, flowing beards and manes, and hooved lower bodies inspired by deer, horses, oxen, or giraffes. They have long been attributed to good fortune and benevolent fate, linked directly to deities in the Chinese faith. Rulers of China in the past were often associated directly with the Ki-Lin in order to highlight their divine right to rule and their inherent goodness, and even the current Chinese government has minted commemorative coins during festivals and special events depicting the Ki-Lin as a supporter of the current rulers of the country. In comparing the monster to the myth, we find that they're incredibly similar in both form and function. Both the Ki-Lin and the Ki-Rin are described as draconic scaled celestial beings with hooved lower bodies that act as emissaries of deities in their respective tales of origin. The Ki-Lin in Chinese fables are kind-hearted, divine creatures that bring good fortune, and the Ki-Rin in D&D brings the same to good-natured parties, and a swift, brutal attack to those who defy the god's will. If you enjoyed that video, please leave a like and comment below, and consider subscribing to the channel. You can also join the Patreon for $1 a month, link in the description below, to access videos days before they're posted here, as well as other exclusive stuff like short stories, videos, and more. For all of my other content, you can find me on Twitch at Moglaroo, YouTube and TikTok at Moglaroo Streams, or my website, mwjgilmore.com.